at 6:30. First up, take a look at the minutes from October.
I found one thing, which was the spelling of Charlie's last name.
Yep, right on the last page.
Yeah,
Got it too.
otherwise it looked good to me.
Last page.
I noticed
That
that
was
it
over in
says I was there.
9C, or 9-3.
It says I was there last month and I wasn't.
Oh,
Oh,
well, we're docking your pay then.
yeah.
Everybody else gets a 50% increase.
Right?
Okay, all in favor of, well, make a motion to approve the minutes, sorry.
I will
Yep.
make a motion to approve.
Second, Joanne.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, they are approved. How about the treasurer report, Joe?
Okay, I show that at the moment for available budget, we have $15,470 and, I'm sorry, $460.74.
Okay, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Get on to update on businesses in Thompson. There was only one certification of adoption of trade name. That was Jeff's Trucking on Reardon Road in North Grovenordale. Snow plowing and salting is what he puts for his job description.
How timely.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to update on businesses? Okay. TBA membership is no change, still at 54. Citizens' comments pertaining to agenda items. I guess Ken would be the only one that counts. And I hear silence.
And I'm good right now.
Okay, thank you. Old business, I figured we'd get a turkey trot wrap up if we could.
Oh, am I up already? Okay.
Oh, I moved you up, Bri.
Oh, not looking at the agenda. I'm looking at my turkey trot stuff here. 40. Well, we don't have a full wrap up because we won't have the final numbers for a while, but the event went very well. Seemed to be received very well by those involved and those participating. Despite the rain, we were out there setting up in the rain and it faded off and came back, and it was interesting. It was even Gary O commented that he's been to this race for more years than he could count, and it's the first time we've ever had rain that he can recall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've had cold, but not rain, according to him. I haven't been involved that as long as he has, but he was very complimentary. He said when I said, "Oh, I'm surprised you came and didn't send someone else," he said he would not miss it. He loves the event. He loves the community involvement in it. And another really nice compliment I got was from Mike Lajeunesse, who obviously we know has been involved with it since the start. And he said this year was the best one he's ever been to. So somehow we pulled it off. And again, the team is who does it. So much work is done by Brian and Amanda and Jaden out of recreation. I couldn't do it without them. And on site, the volunteers and all that John Kay does for us. So it's definitely a team. This year, the added benefit of having a full year behind them with the recreation office experience really helped take it to the next level as far as the smoothness of the production and everything involved leading up to it. As far as the actual numbers, I don't have final numbers from Levency. He said they were similar to last year, that there were about 170 total registrations. 134 of those were pre-registrations. So even with the weather, we still got about 40 registrations over the last weekend and day of, and about 141 actually ran the race, which was maybe 3 less than last year. And again, considering the weather, I think that's pretty remarkable. There were less walkers this year. Again, I don't have numbers to quote, but not as many showed up as had signed up for it, but walking being non-competitive. And with the rain, I'm sure people decided to stay home for that, but they still registered and paid their money. So all was good. Sponsorships are still rolling in. We actually got 3 on Monday. And we wouldn't be surprised to see more because Amanda has been a bulldog trying to get them in even after the fact. As of this moment, our sponsorships are at $14,125, an increase of just over $3,000 from last year. So a very successful effort there. We did lose some unless they come in with some late sponsorships from last year. If we had retained everyone from last year, we would have topped 15,000. Needless to say, our goal next year is certainly going to be to top 15,000. And we would like to get closer to 200 runners. Looking back at RaceWire, the most they had registered was back in their first year that they have a record of, which was 2013, I believe, when they had 198. It had dropped down to 113 by 2015 or so, and it's been staying pretty much steady at 140 since I've been in charge. The number of sponsors were also around 50. The people that participated came from over 50 different towns and communities, and that does not divide up sub-towns. So I counted Killingly as all of Killingly, Dayville, Danielson, the whole area. Everything in Thompson is Thompson. So we had 50 plus specific towns, and that was just the pre-registration. I don't know how many additional came in the final registration. The winners were a brother and sister combination from Run 169 out of Wallingford. She's actually a track teacher at Berlin High School. And the brother came in first, and she came in third overall, but led the way for women. You may all be have the question about the sound system. We were able to get the PA system purchased and set up, not for battery use. Brian, because of the day off at the town hall, Brian Levency picked it up on Thursday and had it at his house, so he didn't have time to charge the battery. Obviously, we have power there, so we don't need the battery, but that is the one thing we didn't test. Otherwise, John Kay actually didn't bring his brother's sound system, so we were totally reliant on the new system. We put it under a tent, and it worked flawlessly. I was able to walk almost everywhere with the wireless mic that allowed the national anthem singers to stay under the pavilion and stay dry, and I could walk to them and bring the mic over to them instead of them squeezing under the tent. When the race started, I was able to walk from the pavilion all the way to the start of the race and actually announce things from locations that I was at. I could bring it around to talk to people if I needed to talk to people. So the freedom it gave us was great. The projection, the amplification was everything we needed and more. If there was any downside, it's that, of course, the speaker faces one way. So we kind of turned it sideways because behind it, you didn't hear all that well. But I think that's the same with most speaker systems that project in one direction. So we were really happy with the performance of that. Let's see, cleanup went great. All the volunteers showed up. We had plenty of volunteers. We didn't have any issues. We had more kids for the kids run than we have had our 2 previous kids runs. So our 3rd year was the biggest yet for that. I had only one issue brought up to me by a runner after, or a participant after. And it's kind of an interesting semi-political issue that maybe I might have to involve Amy with, and that would be regarding, I was wondering if it was going to come up regarding the categories. The person who came up to me identified as non-binary and had a very polite request. He or she struck me as a she, but again, a non-binary person. Very, very polite in the request, not demanding, just pointing out that sometimes there are categories people don't fall into, and wondered if we might consider a general non-binary category. Doesn't have to be by age, but just a category that other people could participate in that don't identify as male or female. So that's kind of out there. I think Brian Levency has also done some research on that for me already, and it is part of the discussion nationally with races as to how to classify participants. But we are in the eastern corner of the state, and I worry about, is it the right thing? Is it too woke for this community? I don't want to create a firestorm, as has been created in different things in Killingly. So I feel like this is above my pay grade.
I would suggest, and you can take this information for whatever it's worth, that the people with whom that would potentially engender such a firestorm are probably not paying 1 ounce of attention to the race, right? That you might have more issues if it was something that directly involved, say, the school, but.
Oh, I agree. I just think that maybe if I bring, like, again, Amy into the picture, just in case something does come out of it somehow, there will be blowback at town hall if there is.
What kind of blowback could there be?
Again,
the town doesn't fund it. The
True.
town doesn't give out the awards. It's not televised. It's something that happens the day of while you're there. And
I mean, I'm in favor of doing it. I just was worried if I'd be doing the right thing.
Brian, I think that there's wisdom in the idea of talking to Amy about it. This might be a situation where we don't have to be the pioneer. We don't have to be the first one to do it. But once it starts to show up as a trend in the neighborhood, then who's going to care? It's an interesting point, one that I hadn't thought of, but it isn't that I'm not sensitive to this. It's that it's not germane to my thinking. But I think it might be smart to ask Amy what she thinks about it. And Ken's on the background, he'll know. But yeah, it could be a firestorm, but maybe they're not even paying attention to what we're doing, or maybe they're going to make a firestorm anyway.
Yeah, if we don't do it, it could become an issue, since it was already brought to my attention that, this person could say, well, I asked for this last year and my request was ignored.
Well, wait, okay, let them come to me, because the world doesn't revolve around any one of us.
Well, Brian, I would just suggest, in terms of, and again, you can do whatever you want with this information, you
Sure.
and anybody else involved in the turkey trot, that there is no actual harm in the inclusion factor here.
Correct.
It is a gesture that acknowledges the changing ways that individuals see themselves, and that's fine. Even if let's imagine the most extreme fun. What are you going to get? A couple of people who say they won't do the race? You think you're going to get people coming up with signs to protest the race? Even if they do, big deal. Who does that make look worse, you or them?
If anything, we'll get more in the race, because they'll see that we're welcoming.
You said there's like 50 towns that were represented? And
There were over 50 towns, and at the conclusion, after giving out the awards, when I thanked everyone for coming, I asked how many, for a show of hands or yelling, how many were there for the first time, and it was at least half of the participants were there for the first
Good.
time.
Good. My point is, if we took a look at the total population of those 50 towns and the one person who made a request, we have acknowledged that request. We're on Zoom. We can say, we talked about it at our first meeting afterwards. We don't know what to do. We're looking for guidance. And then what, are they going to complain? Let them put up signs. We get free publicity. You know, here's a town where people are raising money and not paying taxes and somebody's protesting. Let them.
Obviously, we haven't had our conclusion meeting yet. We will be setting that up and looking at some things. I didn't mention the total. After sponsorships with the registrations, again, a rough total I was looking at with Leave and See yesterday or the day before was going to put us at a little over 18,000 in total income. After expenses, we'll probably still be at around 15,000 to divide up to the recipients of the funds. So that's a nice number. We're going to look a little more at how we're spending the money. I felt like we didn't get any bang for our buck by putting ads in the shopper's guide, because there were actually more people from out. There weren't that many people from in town, and the ones that were just from North Grosvenor-Dale. And and the survey of where they heard from us, I think there were 2 or 3 listed the shopper's guide. So for the amount of money we're spending on those ads, we're definitely not getting a return on it. So we want to start looking at making sure that our expense side is as productive as possible.
Okay.
Good job, Lafredo.
Oh, thank you. We're even going to let dogs formally on the walk next year, because a couple of people asked if they could bring the dogs. It's not feasible on the run because of the width of the path in places and having to pass people and dogs getting excited, but I see no reason not to allow them on a walk. And that might get us some more sponsors like Runnings and the veterinarian offices in the area to maybe support us. Charlie, you're muted if you were talking.
Said, yeah, we have vets in Thompson.
Oh, yeah. Even groomers and the like.
All right.
Any
Let's move to-
questions? I don't know if I missed anything. I tried to be thorough in that, but I'm not working from notes. So if you have any questions, now's the time.
It's pretty thorough, Brad.
Thank you.
Move on to new business, and I don't have any. So progress reports. Chair, I know you have the 65 Main grant news, and you can put it either under grant news or 65 Main news.
As you wish. I'm looking at my grants folder, just looking at them in order. So just the open ones, I'll just give you a quick thumbnail. The federal award for 65 Main for the construction, the contract is fully signed. So that obviously is something that we can start to do once we have the architectural and engineering. That contract is also fully signed. Obviously, that is not a grant request. That's the private donation plus the EDC funds and the other pocket of funding that's putting that. I had a meeting today, a Zoom meeting with the architectural firm. They're going to be coming up sometime in the next week or two. They're going to send me some dates to get the project lead architect in there to start doing her background work. So that's fundamentally off to the races. What else? Recreational Trails Grant for Trainwreck Park. The grant contract is fully signed, and I now have a signed agreement with J&D to do the site survey work, which is the piece that unlocks that. So my last email to Daniel Blanchette was, let me know when you're going to get started or what you need from me. He hasn't replied to that, but for all I know, he's been out there already. So that can be underway. The Brownfield grant for the River Mill, that moves in the most glacially incremental steps. But I did forward over a document countersigned by the developer and the current owner to DECD today to see if that could, they need to generate a negative pledge document for the current owner to sign. I won't go into the details on that. It's super complicated. It'll make your head swim. But there's all these little things that keep getting in the way of getting that final contract executed. And we crept a millimeter closer today. So hopefully I'll get an answer back on that. Sidewalks are almost to the point that they would call substantially complete, meaning we can stop the clock on the timer for the contractor to finish their work. There are some things they're going to have to return for in the spring, but we're putting that outside these substantially complete items so that it doesn't penalize anybody. We're going to have a final or a semi-final walkthrough tomorrow morning with members of MISRAC and the local project team. What else we got here? Litter League has one more collection date that's going to be the first Saturday in December because of the holiday weekend. And then that pilot will be done. You would have to ask Amanda or Leave and see how that's been going. I mean, they've had a couple of collection dates, and I know that there are teams out there. I think it's been a reasonably successful pilot in that we probably have some lessons that we can take into a next season, and how to sort of amp it up a little bit, but it's definitely been going on. And that grant is actually, I made Leave and see the administrator on that since Rec is handling that primarily. And then the last one, but certainly not the least one, is the grant award that we had again for 65 Main, but this time for the programming aspect. I think almost everybody here knows, if not everybody, while I was out on vacation, I got the notification from the USDA Urban Agriculture and Innovative Productions Competitive Grant Program that we were awarded $124,000 and change to pursue the programming and planning aspect of the project. So what that means is we've essentially got 3 out of 4 pieces fully funded now. Piece number 1, which was private donations plus EDC and other funds, is the architecture and engineering and design of the building, which, as I mentioned earlier, is just getting underway. Piece number 2 is the renovation construction of the building, which will get underway as soon as the architecture and design is done. So this now is part number 3, which is what are we going to do with the building once it's renovated? So the 4 partners joining my office in that are Teague, who is going to do a lot of legwork in terms of generating interest among their clientele for people who would like to get involved with sort of micro entrepreneurship on that level, learning those business skills that we're planning on supporting through the center in the end. Eastern Connecticut Conservation District, who is going to work with a permaculture consultant that we will hire to do the site design for the eventual permaculture park on the adjacent 3.2 acres, which is the inaccessible side of Riverside Park on that side of the river. Connecticut Resource Conservation and Development, they will be providing the expertise on agricultural commons, outreach to startup farmers, veteran farmers, in consulting on that piece. And then John Guskowski of Tyche Planning and Policy Group who's going to help me put together the actual, what I anticipate will be a year-long workshop with local stakeholders to actually create the business plan, the maintenance plan, and the curriculum. So that's all the background work has now been fully funded through grants or private donations. The fourth piece that I'll have to go out and fundraise for will be implementation costs. It is intended to be a self-sustaining facility over time. I do not doubt that in order to get it off the ground and running, it will probably require some funding. But each of those grants has been successively easier to get because it's building on the backs of the ones that came before. So once we've got those startup costs cleared after all these other processes are gone through, we will have a functioning small business center at 65 Main Street with at least some focus on that agriculture and food system startups, but also serving as many local needs as we feel we can dovetail together to make sure that it is serving the actual identified needs. So it's all super exciting, and I'm going to be so busy along with many of you at various points. So that was the big exciting news. And I have to say that one took me by surprise because it was a month overdue when they said their notification deadline was. So there you go. And I did finally make contact with USDA, UAIP yesterday with an actual person as opposed to a general mailbox. So they confirmed that they are just putting the document together, and then they'll get it to me shortly. Oh, and the last grant is the steep grant for the library roof. I actually expect that I will have an agreement sent to me by the end of this week, or possibly before the holiday next week, from the state. And then it's the same thing. Once we have that in hand, we can advertise for the contractor and bond for the upfront costs, because that's a reimbursement grant. And then the library is going to get a new roof, and it's all happening all at the same time.
Yay.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Yes,
Yep,
congratulations.
good job.
I have a
Well-
question, if I may.
Of course.
You said something about we would hire a person who would develop a program. Is it that we, in fact, the Economic Development Commission will be hiring the executive director or the administrator of the program that takes place at 65 Main Street? And there'll be a town employee in our department? Is that it? Or is that way off?
No, that's not what I said, although any of those things is possible. The consultant who will be hired through this grant. So to be clear, the $124,000 is supporting 5 professionals. The 4 partners that I named, who are the nonprofits and planning professionals, when I first started writing these grants, they were donating their time as in-kind match, and we were cobbling it together. What this grant is going to allow me to do is pay those organizations for their time so that they can actually put more work and resources into it. For example, Teague may in fact be hiring a contract worker to do some of this background work. They may not. I mean, whatever it is that their needs are, and I have their cost estimates for that. So it enables us to do a more robust development program. The 5th person or individual or company or whatever that will be hired is a permaculture consultant.
Yeah.
So permaculture is a type of landscaping, for lack of a better term, which it's a different way of thinking about landscaping, which is more focused on native species and the way the existing ecosystem can be optimized to support food production in the landscape. That's not a great description, but it's the best I can do off the top of my head. It's a little bit trendy in the last few years, but it's trendy for a good reason, because it's super sustainable, and that is what will allow us to do that food forest using edible native species to replace the exotic invasives that are there. So part of what ECCD will be doing with this permaculture consultant will be identifying and to a certain extent flagging or mapping where the invasives are in that 3.2 acre parcel, describing the strategies to extract them and replace them, and giving us the life list and the planting plan. So, and that that is the single highest ticket item.
So that when the consultant is done, when the person is done, that
We'll have a plan.
inventory. We'll have an inventory of everything that's on the property, and we can design a walking educational trail that says, oh, look, here's cattail. You can eat part of cattail. Oh, look, here's fiddler fern. If you eat this in the springtime, you're going to think it's asparagus. No,
Yeah.
you Gibbons kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yes, things like that.
That's a good plan. And I think I understood you.
Okay, good, good. So that's all the grant news that's fit to print.
Oh, do we need to do a cleanup on the raised beds? Remember we did them when the senator came over? If they're in shape, I can go over and do it before that.
I haven't been over there in a while, Charlie, and except to go in the building. The last time I was over there, I went to the building, did whatever walkthrough with the guy that we subsequently hired to do the architectural, and then walk right back to the office. But I will make a point of taking a look when I go to meet them again so they can start their work. Okay. I doubt that there's much cleanup to be done, although Teague was using it to supplement their community garden after they had their incident up there. But their volunteer, I would imagine, has probably already done all that, but I'll take a look and confirm. Any other questions on any of the grants, friends of mine?
Do you know if the Historical Society is moving forward and clearing the property up there at the train wreck site? I've seen notes from Joe and Paul, but they've copied the courtesy copy. I'm not on that.
I don't believe that they are doing any cleanup yet because it doesn't make any sense to do anything until Daniel completes his site work.
Got it.
Because that's going to include, among other things, the official survey of the portion of the Butler's property that will be dedicated to the turntable. And that is the first piece that will be done. So, and they're not going to do anything at this point in the year anyway.
Went up and put up a really nice sign. If nobody's been up there, Paul made it. And it's to the exact specifications that the original sign was made.
Oh, yes, I did see that. And it is really nice. If anybody hasn't been up there if they feel like taking a chilly walk down the trail, that's in place now.
Okay, anything else? All right, move on to the EDC business marketing strategy, which we haven't done anything.
Yeah, nobody's done anything with it. Nothing to
Sorry.
report. It exists, and at any time that anybody has the energy to really spearhead that, it can be brought to life, but it didn't get much traction, and I just don't think anybody had much energy for it after we ideated it, really.
Yeah. Next up is website notes. I don't have any this time. I don't know if you have any comments or suggestions for the website.
I have one observation. I was downloading the agenda for inland wetlands, and somehow the way that they posted onto the town's website made it really easier to get that. It went right through as soon as I downloaded the original agenda. And you know what? It's a minor issue, but to me, it looks like parts of the web page are being handled a little bit differently. So I just thought I'd raise that comment because you asked about.
Okay. Yeah, and the only thing, it looks like Heather had a problem with her new computer and we didn't get the minutes posted right away. But that's all fixed, and it was the only time that they weren't there on the site. So we're good with that. I have 11 Village Progress on here. I don't have any updates. Tira may.
Well, the kids are using the shed. They had their soft launch at Community Day, as we know, and then I think that they took the month of October to figure out what they were doing after I got those books shipped in for them. They have been there on 2 Mondays, including this past Monday when they actually packed up a little bit early because I noticed they were there, sent a big email out to people, just to staff. Somebody went over there and told me they had already gone. So I think the cold kind of put the kibosh on them. So I connected Katie Butler, who is the faculty member for the transitional program, to Cherie at Winnie to see if we can get some coverage of that before they do their final day of the year before they shut down to completely until the spring. Now that final day of the year is going to be Monday the 28th. So the Monday after Thanksgiving. They are supposed to be there from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is a little awkward time Monday in the middle of the day. You know, originally we had discussed Fridays, which even in the middle of the day, I thought was a better day, but whatever, that's what they've settled on. So if everybody could make a mental note to maybe go down and give that some support if you are in the area between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., take a look at their inventory, maybe spend a couple of dollars on some remaindered books. It would be nice to give them a successful sort of close of season so that they have some feedback also from people on what they can, you know, do when they reopen in the spring. You know, and it is a good time in that it's coming off the holiday shopping weekend. That's probably as good a November day as they're going to get, really, if they're not going to be there that Friday, which obviously school is closed that Friday. So, yeah, I will let you guys know if I'm able to book a Winnie spot with Katie next week. It's short notice, so who knows if they'll be able to squeeze us in. But anyway, that is the update on the 11th Village. I haven't heard anything from Mike Joyce about finishing the third shed or anything.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to ask about the third shed. And did we ever get a latch on the door?
They have, there are 2 new padlocks on the existing doors, and Mike has the keys for them, I believe. He certainly, the school certainly has the key for the original shed because that's the one that they're using. And either Leave and See or the school or both have the key to the second shed, which is the bank, which has a little graffiti on the back. That is probably something we should think about getting painted in the spring. But I want Mike to finish the construction of the third one and spend that money before we do any of the finish work with whatever funds are remaining. So I'll have to follow up with Mike soon.
The 28th at 10 o'clock.
10 to 1. Yep.
Got it.
Okay. Next up, we have bicycling and other events. I don't know if you have anything, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Tira and I got an email from Richard Fries this week, and he says they are expecting 500 riders for this event. And he also asked for suggestions about party the night before. Tira suggested, she's right though, maybe what we need to do is have him hire the bartender or a bartender and work in conjunction with that venue that you go to so often. You're right, it's slow business and it's crowded for what he's looking at, but there's empty stores there, there's empty galleries there. They've had first nights or different nights first Fridays when I've gone down there and they've set up as galleries and they could be set up for a party that night. But he seems pretty intent on that. I did speak with a woman who's running Drifters. Is that it?
Drafters.
Drafters. I met her at the Turkey Trot. She's in and they're going to start having
Sorry,
music
guys.
on Saturday nights. Bless you, bless you. And maybe they're going to start opening their door for songwriters, Quiet Corner Songwriters Association, once a month. But I've got that contact information and passed it on. That's the best way for me to do things. Let somebody else do it. They do it better, like Brian did.
Yeah, it sounds like what Richard is looking for support is much reduced in the past. Like they'll do some of the things that they did before, which is come for whatever.
Events.
Is that the one that needed No, it's the Rhymacon that comes to us for permits and details.
Yeah, I was gonna, did they come to us for anything this past year? Because I've
No, they did. It was very
Huh.
limited. Again, essentially, I ran around for a couple of days putting together a local gift baskets, door prizes for some of their riders, and I've told them I will do that again, and told him as well that I would help if they want to put together a night before event. Made some suggestions. Sounds like he has a guy who is going to take point on that, who lives in Putnam. So that's not going to be our primary responsibility. Really, it's going to be me running around a couple days in the spring,
That's me.
finding local goods.
So they're expanding it. It was and still is the event, the race, the ride is the last Sunday of March. And Thompson Business Association should start to figure out if we've got 500 riders coming into town and they leave here pretty early in the morning and then come back at middle afternoon. Now, sure, most of them are up there at the track. But there are also families that are coming in. We're going to be seeing more of that. And last year, he told me he's looking for somebody who might be right along a road that they could send the race past them. He suggested the distillery out in Pomfret as an example. So here come 500 bike riders past the guy's place. And so your friends can be there having a tipple and watching them go by. That's a good angle for the businesses in town. How long it will take to tie into it or to get the race to run past them, I don't know. Though I do think that, and I did suggest last year to Jill at Jill and G's, they're right on a good route for it. And that's just an example of how the town should be using events as a win-win.
Well, it's something that we don't have any of the food establishments in TBA. And they're probably the only ones that would benefit because everything else is off the streets, out of a garage, out of a truck.
How come we don't have any? I mean, I'm not on TBA, but it's in business.
I'm working on that right now, calling them. I haven't got a really honestly warm reception from any of them. So it's interesting. I am working
Just
on that.
picked up a side point, though. We talked a little bit about signage over at Frank's, and really what we should have our municipal, town of Thompson parking permit overnight or no overnight parking for the new spots that have just been designed in and the existing spots that Tara pointed out. I didn't even realize were there behind the veterans flagpole. That's the kind of signage that we need. Something that just says, it's municipal parking, park here.
Right.
Speaking about restaurant signing, a little off the beaten path here. Yesterday, the Monte Bianco sign was gone from exit 53.
Yeah, that's actually because I got a call in my office pointing out that they were still up. So I had DPW take them down. Kelly called me today, though, to say that they have those signs. Those can be reused, those templates. It's just a decal, apparently. So the next folks who order them, if you want to take them back to the vendor and just say, can you re-stencil these or whatever, might be a little more cost effective.
Okay, yeah, we can check it. Once we have another application, we'll see if that works.
Yep.
The sidewalk project, you already touched on, Tira. One thing I wanted to ask though is, have we talked any more about Blaine Road?
We talk about it constantly. Yeah, so we had to make a revision to the plan that Dave Held of Provost and Rivero originally created and was originally approved by DOT. So Dave and I followed up with him again this week, because what we want ideally is for the same contractors who did the sidewalks, when they come back in the spring, do this same project for us. We've been waiting to get a cost estimate from them, but we can't get one until DOT signs off on the revision. So Dave did send that into DOT ages ago, hadn't heard back. He was going to circle back to them. This is as of yesterday or the day before that this email exchange happened, and I do not have an update from that. That is what is holding us up. It's DOT, really. We could have gotten it done this fall if we had been signed off on yada yada. Because the contractor's coming back in the spring, it's not really that detrimental, except it's just another delay, and who likes that? But it is all going to get done.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
So it didn't get dropped or anything.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of similar things, and could have been reported under grants, it's not an active grant, but it will be. The town has hired the same design firm that did the sidewalks to do a design for Main Street, and that's sidewalks and road reconstruction. And then we are going to submit to the same grant program that funded the sidewalks. The good news for me is it's actually the engineering firm who's going to prepare the grant application this time. Yay. But as far as I'm aware, that is still an underutilized program within the state. So I think we're all fairly optimistic that we will be able to get it done. So that will close the loop, figuratively and literally, on the downtown neighborhood in terms of major reconstruction and sidewalk improvements.
The only thing that needs to be added are trees, and we've got to get volunteers together. I don't know who we are, but we got to get volunteers together to make sure that they get plenty of water. All those new trees that are going in along Route 12 and eventually Main Street, they're going to die if they're not tended.
Can we do anything about getting the state directional signs replaced? When I was driving down there looking at this beautiful sidewalk and the grass that's already growing in, you have these old faded signs for Dudley or Webster or whatever sitting on that weren't replaced on that sidewalk.
I can't even think where those are.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
It's towards 200. I think it's past the 200 intersection, somewhere's around Blaine Road, actually.
On the opposite side?
On the opposite side of Blaine when you're heading towards town hall.
Okay, all right. That's explaining why I'm not thinking where they are, because there's nothing actually along the sidewalk. It's like where that little park is, right?
No, it's on the sidewalk side.
It is on the sidewalk side?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
we're
what
having
stood out
that
to me, because
walk through
some of these
tomorrow.
signs are new, and then those look terrible.
It's before he
We're
gets to
having
the
that
real
walkthrough
post office.
tomorrow, Lafredo. So, and I'm not sure if one of the state inspectors is a part of that or not, or if it's just the local team. But I will make a note to look at it, and if the state inspector is not with us, I will just send them a note. Obviously, if it belongs to the state, we can't touch it without their permission. In fact, we probably can't touch it at all. They have to do it themselves.
Right, and I figured it'd be their thing and their expense, but they spent all this money. It looks like they replaced a lot of the signs, the uprights, the posts look new, or they have new reflectors on them, and then there's these ugly old green signs saying what towns you're heading to.
Okay, the last thing on the agenda is 65 Main, which we've talked about. And eventually we'll have to get into next steps. I think it's too soon.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have next steps with this commission until, certainly until the grant agreement is executed, and we can formulate the action plan with the partners, right? Because that piece is probably going to come mostly from me and Guzkowski and Connecticut RC&D. Interestingly, Guzkowski and I are both also on the council for RC&D, so it may be me and Guzkowski with two hats on, especially since Jean is retiring at the end of February and doesn't have a replacement yet. But you know, that piece is mostly under in our bailiwick, and that's when at some point very soon after we formulate a strategy, we're going to be going out to the local stakeholders to put the workshop together, and that will involve EDC and TBA and ag and, you know, whomever else is appropriate. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the end of the agenda. And we're up to comments by commission members. And because the next agenda will be for January. So if you have any suggestions for the next agenda, also, this is the time to bring them up.
I have two issues that I wanted to talk about. One is there going to be another brownfield roadblock and a glacial pace moving forward when we finally get something done with that property that's on the corner of Blaine Road? If there is, we might want to start looking at it as a proactive step. I know that the land bank and all that stuff has evolved out of this slow process that we're going through. And
Well, I am working in the background with some stuff. One of the complications in that process, obviously, is that it is the same owner as the big mill, and he has proven at best erratic in his responses to us. We are exploring some strategies that I would say it would be premature to talk about in a recorded public meeting. There is some private interest in the property. In fact, I just this afternoon sent out an email to those folks to see where they are, but that was late in the afternoon and I haven't had a response back yet. We do also have a UConn student team engaged in taking on a piece of the site design there, essentially for the space that can't be built on because it's wetlands implicated. So what can be done there for public green space, so that we can feather that into an overall site concept. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, it's still moving glacially, but it is creeping along out of sight, and at the point where we can be more open about, you know, what is going on there, either because there's an accepted offer or because we have been able to pursue the alternate strategy, then, you know, that'll move along too. and I got to tell you guys, and I know I've said it to all of you privately, my goal is to get all of these high quality projects under permit within the next year, before November 23. Whatever I have to do to get it done.
Robert Johnson's Crossroads.
Possibly.
I sent out an email today to most of the people that are on this screen now, many of you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get around to it. I tried to do it right after the last meeting, but it's just a partial list of sources for funding for planting trees. And I think that there's plenty of them. I promise I will look into it more. Don't throw it all to Tira, but she does seem to have a knack with the pen and getting money into the town. It's there and we should utilize it. It's just one of those silly pockets where they've got money, and if you don't know how to ask for it, you don't get it. So, but this town, the trees are really getting hit. It's not just this town, everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere in the Northeast. And I would like us to be proactive so that 50 years from now, nobody's going to remember my name, but somebody's going to say, boy, am I glad they planted trees when they did. Look at how nice it is.
Well, one of the grants that we are looking at is that T-Mobile placemaking grant thing, which has quarterly application windows. There's one coming up in December. We're not going to make that, but for whatever comes in whether it's March or April or whatever, they're looking for shovel-ready project proposals for shovel-ready projects that top out around $50,000. So as part of our site, we're going to conclude our site walk tomorrow with a little jaunt over to Swanson Park, which is the Veterans Park, to take a look at it and try to talk through some possibilities for upgrades there. And that may indeed include either more trees or replacing bad trees or whatever. I don't know what shape that conversation will take, but it's going to be the members of MISRAC, who've been working on these sorts of things all along. The permaculture thing, that is going to, part of that is going to be replacing invasives like Norway maple with possibly sugar maple, possibly American chestnut, possibly pawpaw or American persimmon. Those are swap outs, right? All of the trees in Riverside Park that were planted there are Norway maples. They are invasive species. They should be replaced. That's not a top priority at this point, but at some point, yeah, I'm going to be turning my attention to just that, because it's such an incredibly bad idea to have invasive species planted along your riverbank. I can't even, but people didn't know, right? People just didn't know what things were. It's always harder to undo something that was done wrong than it is to do it right.
3 times more expensive.
Yeah.
Minimum. Well, thanks for all the work you've done, Tara. The grants you've run.
Well, it's just my job, just doing
I
my
know,
job.
I know, but and even though I haven't worked in a town hall, I have worked with other people who have, and I know that you don't always hear somebody say thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying thank you.
Hey, anybody else have anything? Everybody ready to get on with the evening?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Merry
Thanksgiving.
Christmas. Happy
I hope
New
to
Year.
see you all at my gig.
When is it? When's your
Friday,
gig?
Friday the 23rd of December, the Friday before Christmas. It will be the best Christmas show you've ever seen. I will guarantee you that.
Where?
At the Stomping Ground.
Oh, stop at the stomp. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they book me semi-regularly for that holiday show because I'm local and I've got, you know, I have a holiday show that I can plug in pretty easily. So
Well, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
see you tomorrow morning.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Well, with that, if everybody's okay, we'll adjourn at 7:30, a record time.
Woo.
Okay.
Woo.
Woo.
Good night, everyone.
All right.